Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first live global industry spotlight. Really excited about today. My name is Daniel Crane. I am the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, and you are listening to Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur. We are streaming live out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, a room designed for Chicago's small business community located at 2112, Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. This episode is sponsored by Dell Technologies for Startups. Today, the Global Industry Spotlight is on Sara Pocius and Sam Hulick, the founders of ReelCrafter, a platform for musical artists, including composers, musicians, and songwriters, to showcase their music to potential clients. I'm excited because they're 2112 members. They also sit next to me in the office, so it's great to kind of have them here today. So welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. You know, Real Crafter, we're gonna table that for a second and just kind of get both of your backgrounds. So let's start with you.
Sure. I have kind of a dual background in music and tech. I grew up in a musical environment. My dad was in bands his whole life, and so I grew up around that, and I had access to basically every instrument in the studio. So I kind of gravitated towards, like the synth workstations where you could like record your whole tune in the keyboard and save it on a floppy disk. So I had access to that, and I was also into programming and video games. And so eventually I got a job working as a contractor for Lucent Technologies development full time.
Okay.
But still working on music kind of in the back burner until it became like a professional thing.
Yeah, and you were a composer. You BAFTA-nominated NBC News, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And so, how did you transition into, like, when did the composing thing become almost like a main source of income or career?
Yeah. My first professional gig was in 2003, just like ghostwriting, which is how a lot of composers will start off. But it wasn't until like 2010 when I landed like, I guess my first sort of like full-time thing where I could quit the day job.
Right.
People are often surprised to hear like I worked on Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And Mass Effect 1 and 2, like I had a day job. Like I was coding during the day and I'd go home in the evening and then work on Mass Effect until bedtime and then get up, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So it was a lot of work. And I guess the reason I couldn't leave the day job at that point is all three Mass Effects were very collaborative efforts among like a team of composers.
Mhm.
So it wasn't just me. So like obviously you can imagine like the payment was divided.
Right.
But I landed a gig in 2010 where it was just me, and they said, "Here's a big chunk of money, go do your thing." And I was like, "Cool, I don't have to, I can take a break from coding." And so I did. I quit my day job. I moved into the city of Chicago. I was in the suburbs at the time, and that was really where things took off. But after that, kind of bounced back and forth between music and code. But we can get into that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how I feel like successful entrepreneurs have dynamic backgrounds, right? They're not just into one thing. There's like a couple of things that they've done, along the journey. So Sarah,
we get bored easily.
Yeah, right. I mean, exactly. I mean, composing and coding are both like very intensive things. I mean, these are not, you have to be skilled to be able to do both of them well. So Sarah, so you have a ton of experience in advertising, strategy, and design. Can you just talk a little bit about your journey and your background?
Yeah, so I went to school for advertising, and then I realized that I wanted to be a creative versus an account executive. So then I packed up and moved to Atlanta and went to an advertising portfolio school called the Creative Circus for 2 years, which sadly is closing. So and then I started my great adventure as an art director. So I moved out to Las Vegas, worked on exciting casino clients. And then, like you said, I've worked on all kinds of stuff. So I worked on lots of restaurants. I've worked on telecom. And that's eventually brought me back to Chicago. And then it kind of goes right into ReelCrafter. So when Sam started working on ReelCrafter, I shifted gears and put all my creative energy into doing the design and the marketing.
Well, don't forget the jewelry business.
That's true. I also did jewelry design
Yeah.
for a couple of years. So,
Making your own jewelry, or
yeah, and then learning how to work with casters and
Oh,
did
wow.
custom engagement rings. And
Okay.
so yeah, so there's like the design part of that, and also like working personally with people versus when you're an art director and working on big brands.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of impersonal. You never see who you're actually like creating for, or who's looking at everything. But when you're working on jewelry, you're working directly with somebody, and that was really exciting.
Are you still working in jewelry now?
Not as much. I really got into it when we lived out in LA for a while, and they have a jewelry district, and we lived right in the middle of the jewelry district, so I could walk out my door and go to the casters and go buy a diamond, and you can't do that as easily in Chicago.
Yeah.
So,
And just going to, advertising school, and what were some of the things that you really kind of pulled out of that helped, launch your career and, understand how marketing and design works together? Were there just some fundamental things that you kind of carried with you?
I would think the marketing side of the agencies probably don't like the creatives because we never want to listen to the brief, and we just want to do whatever we
Right.
can think of.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely being able to step back, look at the problem that you're trying to solve, and then figure out how you're going to do that within the medium that you're given. So if you're working on social or you're working on a TV campaign, your creative process is going to be completely different. So I've worked with some really great writers. So you team up and you have a writer that you work with all the time. And it's kind of interesting when you're working on one single client that happens to have a good budget. You might be doing videos, and you might be doing banner ads, and you might be doing a direct mail postcard. So each one of those projects, you have to step back and think about how much space you have, who's going to be receiving it, how much time they're going to spend looking at it. And then you have to figure out how to, satisfy that brief that the account executive has put together for you.
Right. Absolutely. And so now we're at ReelCrafter. Can you just talk a little bit about what ReelCrafter is? Who's it for? Just give us kind of a short description would be great.
Sure. So essentially, it's a service for audio and visual creatives to create and send highly personalized trackable demo reels, or EPKs, or sizzle reels, samplers. They have like a dozen names depending on the industry.
Right.
It did start off for composers, since I am one.
Right.
It was something that I built to solve my own problems in pitching, which
What were your problems in pitching?
Where do I start? Yeah. So I mean, like, pitching is this whole thing. It's such an important part of the process. I don't feel like it's talked about enough, but it is now more than it used to. There's a lot of unknowns. Like, you send off a demo reel and you don't know if it got there, how much they listened to. I kind of built it. I started conceiving of it when we were in LA, and I was doing more like cold emails. Cold pitches, just to kind of get more into like different aspects of music, like out of video games, more into like film and TV. And I was pulling some pretty bold moves, just emailing like music supervisors out of the blue, like big shots,
Right.
And I didn't know if they even received it. Did it go into spam or not? So I coded this little hack where it would ping my phone when they open it.
Oh, wow.
And I just kind of threw it together. And then some friends of mine were like, that'd be cool. Like, I would pay for that. That would be a cool service if it was this whole thing. And so I started building it around 2014 or so, 2015.
So you have
as a real service.
And so, when people open it, what are some of the other things that you wanted to just kind of improve in terms of like being able to?
Yeah, presentation was a big one too. A lot of us were just sending off demo reels through WeTransfer or Dropbox, and they don't really give you a chance to present yourself as an artist and make yourself like look good.
Right.
It's really important to have that part of your package that you send. Unless you're someone like Hans, like, people don't care. Just your music is great. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But for a lot of people, it does matter, and we're finding now that even more high-profile composers are using like some of the design aspects of our platform to make their reels look nicer too.
Yeah.
So that matters, and just having something that the listener can stream. They don't want to download zip files or waves or MP3s. They just want to open it on their phone or a computer with good speakers, hopefully, and just stream it and get that whole experience.
And so you've been able to kind of add that element as well, where it's not a massive file. They can just stream, listen to it. You'll be able to tell the story, it sounds like, of the composer and be able to represent, which is relating to
that's where I came
right.
in.
That's the storytelling, right? That's the advertising, the marketing. Talk a little bit
Yeah.
about how you view that and ReelCrafter.
I think so. When Sam was working on it, it's obviously very utilitarian.
It was just me. So I'm in my corner. This is in our loft in LA, and I'm
Yeah.
just like over here coding this thing. She's working on jewelry stuff, and then you can tell the rest of it.
And then I'm standing over his shoulder going, this needs to look better. Like, this is a presentation. So like, as an art director, when you're, applying for a job at an agency, you are essentially doing the same thing. You're putting all your work together. And as an artist, it's very personal, and you have to be very vulnerable when you put your work out there. So you want to make sure that it looks really good, so people spend the time and actually dig into it and see what you can do. So he's building these reels, like the output of what the reel is. And I'm like, they need to have a banner. They need to have their logo on there. It needs to have their bio. It needs to look really sharp. So I kind of started hurting the way that the reels finally looked like. And then eventually I just kind of took that on as my responsibility.
But even the customer facing, like the internal app,
Yeah.
like you made it looks a lot nicer than it used to when I was working on it. And it's hard to work in a silo as I can't as a developer and designer, and just you need external output or input from people to help, just, I don't know, check your decisions and make sure that things function and look the way they should.
I had spent 2 years working at Walgreens eCom. So I did a lot of work on the Walgreens website, and I was, again, as an art director, but I worked a lot with the UI UX team. And so I took a lot of that knowledge to help actually build the app part as well. So
if you download the app, you're able to
It's all web.
It's all web-based. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
That's that was my main question. I know that that a lot of things are kind of going to that because it's easier to use and more accessible for people. And I definitely found with EPKs and sending things like, when people send things from like Dropbox or Google Drive, like if the receiver doesn't have some of those things, they have to like download an extra thing just to have access.
Yeah.
So
I think SoundCloud is one of those where if you try to open it on your phone, it's like use the app. Like, you can't even listen to it in the browser.
And in that moment, you could lose a potential customer.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, oh, I don't have time for this. That happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, I want to check this out. And then you go through the, different websites, click on it. And then it's like, well, you need to download this. I'm like, I'm done.
Right. You want the least friction possible.
Right.
That's what we do.
Right. Yeah. And then for the design aspect of it, the visual storytelling, just the crispness of how it looks. It is important of how something looks because people will then associate that this is going to work well because it looks good.
Yep.
Yes. For sure.
And definitely as an artist being able to personalize it. So you can add your own photos, you can put your own colors in there. So it feels like it's coming from you as opposed to like a SoundCloud link which always just looks like a SoundCloud link,
right?
And it's orange,
right?
And disco links look like disco links. So this is, you can rearrange things. You can add as many playlists as you want. You could add videos. You could add images. So it's like you're kind of curating like a mini web page presentation, and each one can be different and unique. So
okay, and I've been really excited about Canva, which is exactly that, where you can just customize everything, for your feel, your vibe, your colors. And it's very user friendly. I wish that had existed 20 years ago when I was like printing out flyers for my band and trying to, work on Photoshop and just not having not being able to be an expert at that.
Right.
It was, you had to like take classes and really learn how
you didn't have an art director hanging out ready to
exactly.
say, wait a minute, I'll just do this instead.
Yeah, right. It was like, how does this work? Okay, so you have the idea, you're building the company. Where are you at right now? What are kind of some of the next steps as a company? And how long has ReelCrafter been?
We launched at the end of 2016.
Okay.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
For sure. And it took about a year and a half to build the first version. And then the second version, we launched it in this year, January. And that was a longer effort that took a little over 2 years. But it's just us right now. And so, we're looking to like scale in the future and develop a larger team.
Okay. And, how do you do that? what are some of the goals to scale? Are you raising money, trying to do some fundraising, or is it like what are some of the things that you see that will help?
Yeah. We're open to having conversations with the right people as far as raising money. For us, it's more of a strategic play, right? We want to have someone who can bring capital, but also have an opportunity to help us grow and put us in front of the right people, like partnerships or different market segments that maybe we weren't thinking of, or maybe they have easier access than we would. But the main play is really to branch out to other markets besides just composers, which we do have a lot of other types of customers. We have like voice actors, singer-songwriters, DJs, sound designers as well. But we're trying to branch out more into also video, VFX artists, anyone who has to send a pitch with audio or video, that's who we like to serve. But it is difficult as a niche business to break out of that niche when you've started at that place,
right?
And you've been known as this tool for composers. To break out of that is really challenging.
Yeah, and at the same time, this period seems like such a ripe moment for content and audio and visual. I mean, the fact that so many people can create at such ease audio and video, it may not be good, but they can still create it. And I think companies that are able to package that, help them design it and pitch it, is it's great. It's a great moment, I feel like, for that. I mean, everyone I've talked to, especially since the pandemic, it's all about video content. It's all about,
sure.
How do you put these two things together, audio, video, and present that. And everyone has, in their own right, had to learn how to do that. I mean, I know I've had to learn how to do that, with smaller teams. So it seems like, it's a good place. So, so you're 6 years in. How do you feel about starting a company? And, like being entrepreneurs, what are some of the like, man, I love this. And then what are some of the, man, I don't want to do this anymore?
I can't believe it's been 6 years. I would say we came out of the gate kind of slow.
Well, we're both creatives too. And, like we don't have business degrees. And so we just kind of threw ourselves into it and did the best we could. I mean, it's hard. Like, it's one of those things where you kind of tell people who want to get into it, like, don't do it. It's not what you think it's going to be, because you're going to get paid less. You're going to work more. And they're like, that doesn't sound so good. But there's a level of freedom that comes with it, though, that really you can't put a price on.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like I said, so we're 6 years in, or I think in October it will be like officially 6 years. Like I said, like I was working full time, either doing jewelry or we came back to Chicago, and then I started working agency full time again. And then we ended up applying to Techstars Accelerator, because it was like, we need to change something. Like, we really need to like get the energy back into this, and like almost like a redo launch, take a step back, see how we can actually scale, because what we were doing, we were staying so niche with just the composers. And then as soon as we started Techstars, the pandemic hit. So I would say we had really big plans for doing lots of live events and really getting out there and trying to get to new markets. And then the entire world shut down. So it's nice to have that stuff start. Yes, now we're playing catch up. But so this year we started doing live events. We actually are going to be out doing a conference in LA.
Oh, great.
Next month, the PMC conference.
Okay.
So I kind of feel like all the stuff that we learned in Techstars and all the strategies we made, put together, we're finally going to be able to start really acting on. So that's exciting.
Yeah. I feel like we've both evolved a lot since Techstars. And, I used to have this mindset of, I don't want to raise money. And she'll laugh at this, because like I dug my heels in. I'm like, I just want to bootstrap, because it's like the cool thing, and you keep all your capital in the company. But you begin to realize, like, as the company grows and you're working more than you want to, and it's exhausting. And you're like, okay, we have to do something different. We have to scale and sort of like put on the manager hat, which again, like, we're creatives. We're not used to like running a company and running a team, but you just have to grow into it.
That capacity versus resources.
Right. There was a great podcast recently that talked about problem solvers and scalers, and there are people in companies who are figure it outers. These are people like, these are us, like, we solve problems. And then there are scalers who don't know how to do that, but they can take a company and just scale it through the roof. And that's what we're missing, I think.
Okay. And if there's some entrepreneurs out there who want to start their own company. What would be your advice besides a team of?
Here's my list.
I know, but I love the team of composer, web developer, marketing expert, jewelry maker. I mean, obviously you guys are quite the match in terms of covering a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there that are interested, that have ideas. Maybe they've developed a little technology and they're trying to grow. What would be some of the things that you would tell them or yourself when you were first starting in 2016?
I mean, I would say to find a mentor who can help you with all of like the business side of stuff.
Yeah,
So
100%.
now I'm like, I know how to do the books. I know how to I know when to reach out to a lawyer to get contracts made. I know so many things that I didn't know a few
More
years
than you wanna
ago,
know,
more than
probably.
I want to know. So definitely try to find a mentor who could maybe help you with all that, especially if you're going to raise money and you're going to need to set up your corporation the right way. You're going to need to have your cap table, and there's like so much paperwork that goes with it that we did not do correctly. And then when we got into Techstars, which includes a small investment, we had to suddenly like do all this legal work. So if you step back before you start and kind of figure out the things that you're going to have to do, you're going to have an easier time, because it's harder to go back
And do it.
and do all that, especially
Right.
when you're trying to you're in the middle of running a business.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, we did all of this completely wrong because we just didn't know. So,
That happens a lot with new startups, though.
Yeah.
Then you have to kind of backtrack and fix those mistakes.
Yeah.
But
and
that's
then,
okay.
and also know what your strengths are. I mean, we've finally hired a company to help out with our accounting, because accounting is not my strong point. I mean, like, I still count on my fingers. I should not be the one doing the books. But yeah, focus on your strengths and then find a way to hire out for the things that you're not good at, because you'll spend 3 times as much time yourself trying to do it, and then your time is worth money. So
Yeah. That's killer advice. All right. Sam?
I would say don't do it on your own.
Mhm.
There are companies that they started off as solo founders and they're just like work to death. Like, always have a co-founder. Pair of 2 is great. Three co-founders can work. I think more than that, it's too many cooks in the kitchen, and it just raises complexities. But yeah, don't do it alone is the big thing, and try to balance out your skill sets. Like she mentioned, like, you don't want the same type of person who focuses on a certain area. You want opposites.
Right.
A tech person's great. That's one of the biggest things that we see in Techstars. Like, there are teams who don't have a strong CTO or tech person on board, and they're looking for that, and they have to hire that person like after the fact, after they've founded the company. But going in from the beginning with a tech co-founder is really, really strong move.
And do you think would the ideal be you have like a tech co-founder, marketing, advertising, kind of PR person, and then a business development person? Would that be like the super trio if you could cover all those skills? Or
probably I would say someone really strong in sales.
Yeah, sales.
Which usually is a CEO, and they have to be just out there just making partnerships and doing business, and just like your job as CEO is emailing, really. This is my job. Emails. I want to make one of those images where it's like what my family thinks I do, what I actually do, and then what I actually do is just email. But yeah, you want someone strong in sales for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, marketing, tech.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. It's nice to, we're desk neighbors, but also just to kind of hear about ReelCrafter. And definitely check out their website. It'll be below in the lower third, ReelCrafter. Thanks again to Sarah and Sam for coming and talking to us here at the Global Industry Spotlight. Again, my name is Daniel Crane. I'm the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, and this was another episode of Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur. We are streaming out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, located at 2112, Chicago's first film, music, and tech incubator. Thank you to Comcast Business and Shure for providing the tools necessary to make our programming possible, and our partner, Dell Technologies, for startups. Visit cceglobal.org to register for free workshops offered by our partners. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, and tune in next Thursday for another episode of Global Industry Spotlight with Amora Montes de Oca, the Executive Director of Illinois Women in Cannabis. Again, thank you for joining us, Sam and Sarah. Really great to talk to you guys about ReelCrafter. Wishing everyone a wonderful week.